Over the next few minutes that I have left, I would be discussing the new measures that government has introduced, government is planning to introduce to raise the 112. One of the amendments currently sitting before government is to make certain changes to our laws that deals with revenue administration in general, and to replace it or to amend the GRA Act. If you count the number of laws in there, you're going to get what I call about 33 plus laws. Don't worry, we're not going to have conversations on 33 laws because we're not going to live here if you're going to do that. But what we need to appreciate is that government is saying that this 112, I am going to raise this looking at where I'm coming from. GRA put out earlier this year that they met and exceeded their targets for 2022, which you can see from that newspaper bit in there, and therefore they are upbeat on their 2023 performance. If GRA is saying that, GRA is actually telling you that they're going to come knocking on your doors a lot more, and so get prepared that we would be paying you a lot of visits. So how ready are we to navigate those uncertainties? In addition, GRA is going to move from about 75 billion to 112 billion, which is almost a 50% growth. Let's compare that with certain projections that government is making for 2023. Government is saying that I expect my economy to grow before introducing inflationary effects in the calculation by about 3%. I expect my end of year inflation to be approximately 19%. If I do a very simple without going through the product basis of dealing with rates, just a simple add up, you could just take 3 and add it to your 19, you get 22. So if everything remains the same, then nominally the economy should grow by 22. But if GRA is telling you that I'm going to grow by about 50%, it means that you are going to do much more than just what inflation is going to give them. Meaning, once again, that I expect GRA to be a lot more aggressive this year, and we must also be a lot more prepared for that conversation. Let us remember that in achieving the end of year inflation of 19%, we're going to start from a January inflation rate, if I use the consumer price index as a measurement, of about 54%. So we expect that inflation should be trending downwards until we end the year with about 19%. So having set this context, and what is the context? About a 50% growth in revenue collections by the GRA. What are those new measures that we need to be prepared for going into the year? This slide is just for you to look at, and I'll move away from it very soon. This slide only gives you an idea of the new measures, the varied new measures that government expects to introduce in 2023. If I'm going to talk about this, it's going to take us the whole day. So we have a very summarized form for us to look at. So the first thing going into 2023 we need to take note of is that there's going to be a lot more increased transparency at the GRA end. So let me bring this home. You might have heard that government or GRA went around closing down shopping malls on account that the people were evading taxes, they were not complying with the EVAT and all those stuff. Before we accuse and nail those people, let's ask ourselves, what was really happening? So what was really happening is that last year government did a couple of things. So if you remember, there were some GRA officials who were sitting in shops when you go to the malls. And in Kumasi, they were sitting in certain trader shops. That exercise was just a compliance exercise, meaning that the GRA official just pick their chair, they sit in there and watch whether when you engage with your customers, you give them a VAT invoice. The people in Kumasi felt a bit threatened, they complained, they shut down their shops. Government appointees went to beg them, they said they won't open, they begged them until they finally opened the shops. All that the GRA people did was to sit down and observe. For the other shops, of course, they don't vote. And of course, when you're dealing with a politician, you must recognize that having an economic conversation is not enough. You must also have a political conversation. They came to the malls, the palaces and co. They came to sit there. That was not a problem. What was the problem was that Parliament passed a law last year, somewhere around July, August. We took our sweet time to have the law assented to by the President, took our time to gazette or to make those laws public. The dates of gazette notification of those laws were 12 September 2022. First week in October, GRA started shutting down those shops, that they are not integrated, blah, blah, blah. And the reason they were doing that was that apparently they had had a conversation with those people. And those people had agreed to be used as, quote unquote, guinea pigs or pilots for the EVAT project, which basically means that as you run your transactions and you issue those invoices, GRA gets an immediate notification of the invoices that you've issued. And that's what I call an increased transparency. So the challenge GRA had was, they had engaged them in the issue around piloting and linking, and the people had failed to start implementing the law, which was only made available or signed or made public on the 12th of September. I remember very well that I got my copy of that law somewhere in October, late October, early November. So the concern was that how fair really was the GRA? In addition, that law actually provided for a 1-year transition period. And if you think you couldn't meet that 1-year transition period, you could write to the Commissioner General to request for 3 months extension. And the Commissioner General, based on your circumstances, could do that. So when all these conversations around closing down the shops, whether it was fair or not, happened, GRA, in our view, unfortunately went to Parliament to now get Parliament to remove the 1 year plus 3 months possible extension that you could get. What that now means is that the current position of the law that was made public on the 29th of December is that if you are doing any business in this country and you are required to charge VAT, then unless you have an approval from the Commissioner General, the VAT invoices that you are currently issuing is problematic. So what should you do? The advice we give to a lot of our clients is pick up and write a letter to the GRA. Invite them and tell them that you are ready to hook your system onto the GRA systems for the purposes of issuing the invoices. So this is a critical thing you need to do if you've not done it. The invoices that you are issuing currently, if you don't have any special dispensation from the Commissioner General, those invoices are problematic. And to save yourself from trouble, please write to them. If you can't write to them yourself, talk to your consultant to issue those letters to the GRA. At least you will have evidence of having submitted that you've asked them to help you hook your system to DS. The question that may come up is, what if I don't issue VAT invoices? So we're talking about increased transparency. The law has also been amended, expanding the scope of GRA to get access to your networks going forward. So GRA can make a request to access your network. So the EVAT bit deals with those who charge VAT. The general ones, which was also passed into law on the 29th of December, now applies to everybody based on the Revenue Administration Act. So 2 key points that you have to begin navigating the issues in 2023. The other thing that you need to note is that a couple of years ago there was a leaked memo on social media where the Commissioner General had instructed his team that when you go out and somebody charges or is being charged VAT and the person does not have a VAT invoice, deny also an income tax claim. For us, it's a bit problematic But usually when we are providing tax opinions, we must also be practical. The least I want to do is not to tell my client in advance that try and avoid this, than to now go with them and go and argue. And we're going to talk about how our dispute resolution process has also changed going into 2023. So 3 takeaway points here. 1, ensure that your invoices are approved as soon as possible, linking to the GRA systems. 2, note that GRA has now gotten an expanded access to information from your businesses. And then 3, you have every incentive to ensure, and some of the things that we have done, spoken to some of our clients also do, is start making demands on your on your suppliers to give you the VAT invoice and keep those things on file just for the day of trouble.